StudentPreneur, the podcast about students who are entrepreneurs. Get motivated and keep your energy high. Stories from studentpreneurs.
This episode is sponsored by ID Network, a network of university associations run by studentpreneurs for studentpreneurs. Visit idnetwork.com.au. Welcome to episode 10. My name is Julian Marchand, entrepreneur turned PhD student. Each week, I bring you the best of those individuals who are students and entrepreneurs. I call them studentpreneurs. This week, I have two studentpreneurs. They are co-founders, Wilf Watson and Danum Harris-Lusk. So, Wilf and Danum, you're enrolled at the University of the Sunshine Coast. And Wilf, you're doing a double degree in business and arts. And Danum, you're doing a degree in business with a major in marketing and entrepreneurship. And you're 26, 22. Do you guys want to explain us what you're doing now?
Yeah, so at the moment, we're optimizing our current product called the VR Smart View. And it's basically a smartphone accessory, kind of like a pair of goggles that you insert your smartphone into. And it allows you to, wear your smartphone and transform it into a virtual reality, immersive, what we call head-mounted display. So it's pretty cool. It allows you to watch movies. It's kind of like a portable cinema, magnifies your screen. And there's a lot of games and apps already out there.
And at what stage are you in this business?
Yeah, we're at this sort of seed stage, still. We've just raised a 5-figure investment in the last few months where we've launched on the market last October. So we're just sort of building brand awareness and pursuing sales. And yeah, we're looking to make a big announcement once we've finished optimizing our current design.
And do you have any feedback from customers or early customers and investors?
So the feedback we've received to date has been very positive. There's been a few things in which people would prefer that be changed with the product. And obviously we've taken these on. And that's what we're going to do for the optimizations. We're going to improve some of the levels which people would find more comfortable, would find more optimized, would be more portable, all these type of elements. And from an investment perspective, the feedback we've gotten has been quite positive. The investors have been grateful with what we've done, achieved our milestones, and now we're just managing that communication process with them going forward.
Yeah, and the customers have been really positive. The reviews that we've gotten have been really positive, really reassuring. And that's been a huge relief for us because it's kind of like testing the waters when you release a product like that. So there's been some neutral points and we knew that and we want to sort of improve the product. There's a lot of competition, so we're very aware of that and finding ways in which we can, give more value in the product that we're making to our customers.
Oh, that sounds pretty good news. But how did you get where you are now? Did you have any lemonade stand when you were young, or what did you do to get here?
Sure. So with regards to my entrepreneurial experience, it started from roughly year 12 onwards. I was coming to the end of my schooling career and a little confused, as I'm sure most people are, with what to do at that point in your life. And I did have a passion for entrepreneurship and working for myself, not necessarily doing the typical 9-to-5 as a lot of people do. So from there, I went to the startup weekends. I thought that was a great place to start. I attended 2 of those in the Gold Coast. And from those weekends, they were for the most part successful. And the startup companies which launched from that ran for roughly a 6-month period until there was a few sort of team issues of which I departed. But those companies are still going forth. So yeah, I found the events themselves very sort of successful in educating me with the lean startup methodology and starting a business from the ground up. So I met Wilf at the beginning of last year in my entrepreneurship minor, just in class. And we began discussing, I mentioned to Wilf the startup weekend and my previous experience with entrepreneurship. And Wilf shared with me his passion for virtual and augmented reality technologies, gave me a short pitch. So that sort of, enticed me. I shared an interest with him. And then Wilf obviously pitched the concept at the startup weekend here on the Sunshine Coast in May of 2014. And I'll pass over to Wilf to share.
Yeah, well, since an early age, I've kind of been a bit of a salesman. I was digging crystals out of my mum's backyard and I sold it to the neighbors for $10, this massive quartz crystal. So she wasn't too happy about that. But I've had a real interest in digital media, sort of creative arts. And in high school, I was learning to edit around the age of 15. I was lucky enough to be taught that. And so I was creating like short movies, and I eventually was able to get work. So I worked in sort of the film and television kind of industry for a fair few years while I was in high school. So I was working throughout high school, and then I went to university and studied interactive multimedia. And so that gave me some more work opportunities. I worked for the government for a couple of years, and I worked for a couple of private television production studios as well. So kind of that work experience, I started off working, getting as much experience as I could about, how to work with clients, how to run a business. But I eventually met some freelancers, and they convinced me that, working for yourself was the way to go. And for me personally, I got to a point where I felt like I wasn't learning anymore in my job, and I felt like I was now ready to take the next step and go freelance. So that's sort of my sort of entrepreneurial, I guess, entry. And yeah, I've loved it ever since. I strongly believe that everyone should be their own boss or at least follow their own, own calling.
Danum, you said you were confused at the age of 12 and you had a passion for entrepreneurship. And then you mentioned the startup weekend, but that's a big gap. It's a big jump from confused and, I'm going to go for a weekend competition full on. Like, how did you hear about the competition and how did that change your mindset, basically?
So yeah, as I mentioned, it was the end of year 12. And at that point in time, the main thing I had passion for, I suppose, what was the buzz at that time was apps. So myself and another student started looking at, ways in which we could launch a viral app, if you will. But we secured 2 business mentors through the Noosa Chamber of Commerce. So we were discussing with them. We had them for a year period. And throughout that, we discussed, different concepts that we had. And we progressed a few, doing some application briefs, looking at, the revenue models, the way we could monetize them. And as far as I recall, they were the ones who shared the Startup Weekend initiative with us. We did a little bit of research on it, and it just seemed like, a great introductory event to, that sort of fast-paced entrepreneurship. And obviously, the purpose of the weekend is to create a company in 54 hours. So you really have to learn fast. And obviously, the weekend is all about doing and not just talking about it. So that's certainly, what we did at the weekend, and met some cool people. So that was, it was certainly an experience in itself.
I heard that you're coming back to the Startup Weekend with a different role.
Yes, my 4th Startup Weekend, I'll be mentoring. So on the other side of the fence this time. So I'll see what insightful information I can provide.
Good, looking forward to seeing you there. So when did you feel that you had something that you could have a business with Phenomec, with your company now? When did that come through your mind? When did you have your aha moment?
Yeah, so I was doing a lot of research into a really successful VR device called the Oculus Rift, of course. They raised, I think it was 2.5 million on Kickstarter, and subsequently got acquired by Facebook for 2 billion. So I was very interested in this field, and there was some products on the market that were using smartphones. I was really inspired by the do-it-yourself community, people that were sort of hacking together these cardboard devices with smartphones in them. And at that time, which was early last year, there wasn't any sort of real commercial product on the market except for one. And I saw an opportunity there to create a product that, served the needs for people that wanted, wireless virtual reality that was most importantly affordable. It used the smartphone, so people didn't have to shell out hundreds of dollars for an Oculus Rift plus a high-end PC as well. So basically, that really drove me to look at the market, look at the idea closely, and I definitely saw a gap there that could be filled. And as I looked into it more, I understood the potential for virtual reality, not just the hardware, but the software, the ability to, immerse people in compelling interactive environments for, not just for gaming and entertainment, but for business, training, education, immense opportunities there. So that is how sort of Phenomec came together. And we've been sort of focused on the hardware. It's kind of like that chicken or the egg, which comes first. But we see kind of the future in virtual reality, for us anyway, in the software, in the content side. And for me, with my background in video, that is passing over into virtual reality now. We have these cameras called omnidirectional cameras that film in all directions. And we can take that footage and use that in the virtual reality environment. So you can be in an actual recorded video, basically, if you can imagine that. So imagine looking around at the real world that's been recorded. So this is really sort of exciting for me, and it's a really interesting medium for storytelling and for, I guess, promoting ideas through this new kind of video medium.
I mean, virtual reality has been around for a while, but as you said, it was with computers and hardware, like it was expensive. So you saw that moment when you could use your phone, and that will reduce the cost drastically. But you just said that it was because of your experience with video that you were able to pinpoint the opportunity. So what other skills did you bring from your previous experience?
Yeah, so in my sort of my background in video production, we were doing a lot of commercials. So I had a bit of an understanding about marketing and about communication, ways in which to communicate an idea or a product. And so I guess those skills came across in terms of thinking about, the market and about what this product does, how it works. My background, my technical skills came through, I guess, in putting together some 3D renders of the product that was used over the startup weekend. So I was able to sort of visualize and show people how it worked. It was very difficult on the first night. I had a minute to pitch the idea of a virtual reality headset that used a smartphone. I think one person in the audience even laughed. I mean, it's just such an outlandish idea. Now, of course, it's absolutely accepted, and we're seeing commercials on TV by competing similar products. So it's better to communicate it visually, in my opinion. And even visually, I think for people to get what virtual reality is, you need to sort of give them the experience, put the headset on them so they can actually see for themselves.
All right, so now come the big one. How do you manage your business and your studies at the same time? What's the secret sauce?
I'd say that the secret sauce would obviously be organization. There's, to be honest, there's been a lack of that in the early days. This venture taking off after the startup weekend in May of last year. And, with the success of winning the startup weekend and further, leads, interests and so forth, we were really thrown a multitude of opportunities our way. And at that point in time, we didn't have a clear vision for the company. Obviously, there's many applicable markets for virtual and augmented reality technologies. But as I say, we didn't have that vision or the understanding of where we wanted to take the company. So for us, we were, over the period of at least 6 months, sort of spreading ourselves a little thinly, you could say, from the business perspective. And obviously that also negatively impacted the university studies. I failed my first course last semester due to a lack of attendance, being so busy with Phenomec. But yeah, it's certainly a juggling task. And coming into this year, first semester back, it's just, we've put a strong focus now on delegating, having, project management, expanding the team. So, for us, it's evident that you need, obviously a work-life balance and also a balance with your university commitments as well. So, that's one of the focuses for us now, just so we don't, run ourselves too thinly across the board.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. And it's very hard to do everything yourself. I mean, it's Dame and I splitting the workload. And I guess the timelines that we work under, developing a product within 3 months, taking it to an expo and, going overseas to Dublin, exhibiting there, all those things we did within such a short amount of time was just a huge effort. And that's what's required. You have to have that mindset, be prepared to do it. I mean, we were working 12-hour days for weeks, in the lead up to the expo particularly. So it's important to have a bit of a balance, but it's also important to delegate, to have others, to have that support and to know, I guess it's a thing to realize how much work you've got to do and know when you need to get some extra help, not to just say, oh, we'll just work it out. We'll do it ourselves. It's now about bringing on the right people that can help share the workload.
Yeah, I mean, you can start sharing because you start receiving investment, but if you have no money, you can't delegate to anyone. That's a problem. And that expo in Ireland, was it during university semester or was it outside?
Yes, it was just after exam block. So I think it was maybe in a week of exam block, but luckily Wilf didn't have any exams. I had one that I did before we left. So the teachers were somewhat flexible with us in that regard. But yeah, we had to sort of push all the university assessments forward in order to make that. And prior to the Dublin event, there was the expo in Melbourne, which was PAX. So there was, an extensive preparation process for the two of those being away for, 3 weeks at a time. So
Do you find like it's a supporting environment? Like the university, do the tutors and lecturers understand? I'm saying, sorry, ma'am, I'm not going to be here. I'm going to Ireland. Or do they just say, tough luck? I mean, you just need to do it.
Yeah, they were actually really supportive of us, which was great. All of my tutors were anyway. And so they gave me some flexibility there, which I really appreciated. And that was, really critical for me in terms of being able to pass my assessments, having that flexibility and just, letting them know what's going on. Because they saw sort of how important it was to me. And that was, really appreciated.
And that meant that you spoke with them and explained what you were doing. And that's why I understand. And you say it's it's difficult to do the balance, but in the end, why do you still want a degree? Like, have you thought about, dropping out? That's, the story always, I'm going to dropping out, blah, blah, blah. But is that for your parents or is that for yourself? Like, what's...
For me, though I do enjoy university itself, I chose the business degree. Well, just to backtrack, I started in psychology. So I did a year of psychology and then realized that I was doing business and I was doing psychology. So I may as well transfer to business so it's more aligned. And I'm doing, the same thing each day. And for me, choosing to do business, obviously I want to learn that, the theoretical knowledge that you attain from uni, but it was more so just to do something aligned with, a startup venture. And at this point in time, it's more so just to complete the degree and finish it off. I've got 6 months left now. So yeah, I just want to get it out of the way. And it's not necessarily to go into a 9-to-5 job doing marketing. I don't necessarily have a passion for that, but the knowledge that you attain from doing the degree is obviously of some assistance to your startup venture. So
for me, I'm at university because of the supportive environment. So, I could have studied the whole degree online if I wanted to. So the whole reason is to meet like-minded people like Danum who are driven and I get along with. And that's, I guess, the most valuable thing for me, the networking, the relationships you build. Also with the tutors as well and the lecturers, really useful. So I do intend to finish my degree, but I've sort of haven't been following the strict course curriculum. So it may be a little while. I may need to defer if things go well. Well, I've just been here for sort of personal enrichment. So I've been sort of picking subjects that, interest me or, and I haven't so much been so strict in terms of, following the guided electives. And I guess that's what afforded to me in the double degree. It's quite broad, so I've got a bit more flexibility there. But I'm definitely not in the fast track to finishing uni. So I may need to look at that again, my situation.
All right. Thanks for being honest. You're talking about supporting environment. Wilf, you said you actually came to uni to have that supporting environment. Do you think you have a special environment here? I mean, we're doing the interview from the Innovation Center, which is on the campus of the University of the Sunshine Coast. Like when you go to class, you have to walk out of the office for like 2 or 3 minutes and then you're in classroom. I mean, did that environment help or would have been different if your office was like 10 Ks away? Or like, do you think it helps?
Yeah, undoubtedly. I mean, it's great to be in the Innovation Center with, many businesses of similar stages, some being in the startup phase, some being more established, but it's great to have those resources there. Obviously, you can call upon them for connections, for advice. And then obviously the Innovation Center itself has the mentor panel. So, you can call upon them when you need. And I think just the general environment itself is great. I mean, if we were doing this startup venture in a garage, as a lot of them do, I think it's, it would certainly be a different environment for us. And, I can't say whether that would be better or whether it'd be worse, but it would just be different. So the previous startups were established through the Gold Coast Startup Weekend. So my business partner and I, for those ventures, ended up staying at resorts in the Gold Coast, which wasn't a bad thing either. But then obviously we had to work remotely. So I think it's obviously better to have that face-to-face meeting and you get a lot more from those.
So apart from meeting each other and apart from having the Innovation Center on campus, did you get anything else from the university or from that environment? You don't have to say yes. Like you said, you came on campus to meet like-minded people. Did you get something else out of it? Did you use the rooms as an office at the beginning or stuff like that, for instance?
Yeah, so the entrepreneurship course where I met Danum was great. It was sort of a new course of its type where they brought together students from entrepreneurship minors with design minors and journalist minors. And so we're in this classroom environment with people from sort of different kind of interests and experiences and backgrounds. It was really good just being in sort of a melting pot of different ideas, and everyone there was so enthusiastic. You know, it was a class in which you were to form a new venture, and that's where Phenomec was initially formed. So I really got a value out of that environment that was created in that classroom, and it was a really supportive environment where we were able to, you know, pitch our ideas without being, you know, without fear for being judged, you know, and get constructive criticism back on the ideas. So it was a really kind of safe place to just start sharing your ideas with other people and seeing if it sticks against the wall. So I really enjoyed that class. And I would say that's a highlight for me.
I think another thing that's great, obviously being located next to the university, is the fact that you have potential customers, you have people that you can get feedback from. So obviously we took advantage of the university open days, exhibiting at those for free because we're associated with the university. So for us, you know, getting marketing footage, getting feedback, just opinions in general was obviously of great value.
Yeah, no, it's good, like, because it's often a benefit that other entrepreneurs don't have, like having all those customers next to you and having courses about it and having offices that you can have. So it's good that you've took advantage of it. In terms of learning, not necessarily academic learning, but how do you learn to stay up to date on audio and video, but even all the rest? Do you listen to podcasts, read blogs on the internet, or read textbook?
Yeah, well, for our industry, we've got a news website that posts the latest industry news in virtual reality called Road to VR. So we follow that on a daily basis just to see what's happening in the industry. But for sort of general business questions, for me personally, I get a lot out of mentoring. And so we've got access to a mentor here at the Innovation Centre. And that's been so valuable, just being able to go to someone when you need to and run by ideas and you have questions. This is also a really special environment here because we share this building at the Innovation Centre with other startup businesses or established businesses. And they've been really supportive as well. We've been able to meet with these guys and ask them questions. So there's been, you know, everyone's got a kind of a good attitude here to help each other out when you need it.
With regard to general entrepreneurship, you know, knowledge and that expansion, for me, I'd second the mentoring I mentioned. As I said earlier, another business associate and I had 2 mentors through the Noosa Chamber of Commerce. So we worked with them for a year. We went to events through the Chamber of Commerce. And then obviously here with Phenomec, we have access to the mentor panel. And then we have people letting us know when all the networking events are on, so you can go and meet up with all those like-minded people. And I mean, further than that, it's just online reading that I do from relevant blogs, websites, TED Talks, etc.
Those good old TED Talks. So you talk about obviously the mentors, but the first time you received mentoring, that was at the Noosa Chamber of Commerce. Was it like a prize from the startup weekend, or how did you get that? Did you ask for it? Like, because it's something hard as a student to say, hey, I want some mentoring, guys.
Yes, so we came across that initiative through my business partner's parents. It was a paid service, but it was relatively cheap. I think it was $200 for 6 months or a year or whatever it was. And it was meeting on, I think, roughly a monthly basis, and you come with your questions prepared. And they were more so there to facilitate your personal growth within entrepreneurship and business, as opposed to just say, that's wrong, this is wrong, do it this way. So it's sort of, they're facilitating your, expansion of knowledge and you finding the answer for yourself. And I'd put a big emphasis on that itself. Obviously you got to find the journey, but it's good that people do give you some guided direction so you don't make some, naive mistake.
And for the tutors that you are receiving now, like, did you seek for them, or did they just come with a building? Like, or were you actively looking for mentoring?
Yeah, we definitely were. At the startup weekend, we were definitely looking for mentoring. And of course, that's a perfect environment because it's full of mentors there. So we had people come up and share sort of ideas and test our ideas, and we had questions for them. So after the startup weekend, we were like, oh, we definitely still need this support. And thankfully, part of our, our prize package was access to the mentor here, the entrepreneur in residence, Dean Ali. So it's been great having access to him. And that's part of the service you get with membership here.
So I understand he's only a staircase away from you guys. Have you been knocking on his door like every day, or like how does it go? Like how do you have the interaction with him?
Yeah, we were, to be honest, from the early days, we were heavily reliant on Dean to an extent. We're sort of, knocking on the door every couple of hours, sharing dinners together. As time has progressed, we've managed to find more answers for ourselves, but it's still good to catch up on, a fortnightly, a monthly basis, and just have those big questions that you want to work through, or just really to validate your logic behind specific, company decisions and direction.
You definitely have a really good support, like a good supporting environment where you are now, like in terms of being students and entrepreneurs and having mentors and having the networking here. So where do you see yourself getting that support in, like, let's say a year, or, when you finish with your studies? Will you stay here, or will you search another supporting environment? Or you haven't thought about it because you're doing 1 month at a time?
Yeah, it's taking it sort of small steps at a time. I sort of see myself being pretty grounded here for at least the next 6 months. And regardless, I think the rapport that we've built with our mentor will be, something lifelong, that we could at least send him an email and catch up every now and then. So, I'm not really sure what the future will hold, but it's very good to have a board of mentors, or at least advisors on the company itself. So we are looking for more mentors and attracting the right kind of mentors, to us. And that's our plan for the foreseeable future, to build that support group.
Yes, I'd agree. I think, it's important for us to stay grounded for the following 6-month period, especially. I need to finish university, so obviously I need to be here on the Sunshine Coast. Following that, I do have a personal interest to travel with business. We've discussed, future investment rounds and the fact that, the Australian market can be quite restricted at times. So we'd look overseas, Singapore, America, the likes. And as Will mentioned, I think it's very important that we construct the advisory board in a strategic manner, so we have, relevant people from relevant sectors and industries that we can call upon. So
cool. All right. So those were the easy questions, of course. So now we get into the tough one. Can you share with us a failure or some rough times that you went through, either in this business or the one before, just to give us some examples of what happens?
With regards to startups in general, I think I wouldn't necessarily call it a failure, but, maybe so. But the previous startup, which was a Gold Coast-based startup, we launched through the startup weekend itself. That progressed for a period of 6 months. The team construct was myself, my business partner, who's of a similar age, and 3 to 4 older businessmen who've either been in the industry for a while or have entered and assume they have more knowledge. So there was a funny team dynamic as such with respect to that. And the reason I'd say it failed or didn't progress as quickly as it should was just the fact that there was, you could say, 10 kings in the company, everyone trying to push their own direction and not necessarily taking the lean startup methodology. People wanted to put processes in place or, define 12 different business models without just looking at one and saying, yes, that does work. Let's try that before we move on to an alternate path. So it was my decision and my business partner's decision to part ways from that simply due to that fact alone. And that was, a month prior to the Sunshine Coast startup weekend. So I didn't find much time in between, but obviously that was a good thing as well.
You're saying something about going into business with people older and having several kings in the same business. Is that something, do you think that is due to age, or it was just due to hierarchy? Or because a lot of young entrepreneurs just want to stick with other young co-founders rather than going with others. What do you think the problem was?
Yeah, I mean, the dynamic itself was interesting. To mention from the start, from the weekend itself, the man who pitched the idea, he was sort of, roughly 40s. We approached him, we thought, there's not much chance of him letting us join the team, but he did. And then post weekend, we thought, well, they'll be lucky if they keep us on, because I think there was, as I say, 4 older businessmen in the team, but they did. And then going forward, there was, they'd hear us out, but I don't think we'd ever, be able to make a final decision on anything. And I think that's simply due to the fact that, them being in industry for a longer period of time, not necessarily having success, but just having that mindset that, they've had that experience we necessarily haven't. So therefore, our logic isn't as aligned as it should be with what will be successful. So yeah, I'd simply place it on that. And as I say, being older, and not necessarily knowing a lean startup methodology, they wanted to take a more structured process. And that's not necessarily the quickest way to success or to traction or validation. So
yeah, just wanted to talk about some of the hardships we've had, even with Phenomec itself. It hasn't all been sort of rosy and green, that's for sure. It took us a long time to get investment. We put together a pitch deck, and we probably put together, almost 30, 40 pitch decks since the startup weekend, over a period of about 4 months, just tweaking things, changing our communication style, really thinking through the business plan. And the first few pitches, didn't go so well. People kind of scratching their head still. And so it's just been that process of learning by doing, not being afraid. We were flying down to Sydney and Melbourne. We contacted people on LinkedIn. Some people were interested. Other people said, this is like, what are you doing? You shouldn't do this. We got some negative feedback, but you can't be afraid to fail. And so, we really cut our teeth doing that process. We went through the awkward, silences or the big questions. It's really valuable because it clarifies things more and more the more you do that. So, it certainly was a, fail fast approach for us in terms of the pitch until we really clarified things to a point where it worked.
Thank you. Sounds really, really tough to have to travel to Melbourne and Sydney from Sunshine Coast. I'm really sorry for you. That must have been terrible. All right, we're coming toward the end of it. Is there anything you need from the listeners? Is there anything else you want to share with the listeners? Something that you haven't been able to say so far? The mic is yours.
Yeah, so if anyone's really keen to find out more about what we're doing, just send us an email. Come check out our website, phenomec.com. And if you're really keen, sign up to our newsletter. We post out some updates. And we've got a Facebook page. So we post up the latest news on that as well. It's Phenomec on Facebook. Yeah, so just Phenomec, Phenomec. And at the moment, we're, like we said, we're focused on launching a crowdfunding campaign. So we'd really, really like to share that with people. And everyone wants a viral campaign, I think. No, we're giving it our all. So we're really looking forward to it.
Another thing I'd just like to mention is that we're currently expanding the team. As I said, delegation is a very important thing for us. So specific roles we're looking into, marketers, game developers, software engineers, 3D artists. So if there's any of you guys out there and you'd like to be in touch, we'd be happy to hear from you.
Great. That's quite a few people that you need. And for the crowdfunding, is that going to be kind of like payable? Like if you're going to buy a headset and that's what you're going to get? Is that how you're going to do it?
So basically for the campaign, as with crowdfunding, there's multiple tier sets. So we'll have, obviously one will be giving away the product, but we're looking to increase the value we offer to the consumer. So we're looking to offer, game pads that people can purchase to use with their unit, potentially a smart screen. Then there'll be other, obscure packages like Meet the Founders, these type of things, tiers that people can get involved with. So
wow, that's a lot of hardware, gamepad and screens. Sounds exciting. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you very much for having us for all this time. And we'll catch you later.
Thanks.
Time for a quick wrap up. Each studentpreneur story is different, and what works for some people doesn't for others. However, I'd like to point out a few things in Wilf and Danum's journey that are similar to a lot of studentpreneurs I have interviewed for my research. Both Danum and Wilf valued university to meet like-minded people. They are very good examples of leveraging entrepreneurship competitions. These competitions are everywhere, at university, at local meetups, or even organized globally, like the Global Student Entrepreneur Award or the Startup Week & Co. Danum was on his third competition when he met Wilf. They got empowered by the energy and the guidance they received at the weekend and won the competition. This gave them a lot of motivation and validation, but more than that, they received mentoring and workspace in an innovation center afterwards that helped them keep the motivation going and know where to go. A year later, they've presented the product in several countries, received seed money, and are on the verge of a Kickstarter campaign. So the lesson here is, find out the competitions happening around you and get on board. You'll gain valuable experience. Like-minded people, and who knows, you might end up a year later in Wilf and Danum's position. So go for it. Thank you so much for your time, Wilf and Danum, and all the best in your Kickstarter campaign. If you enjoyed this podcast, please review us on iTunes with 5 stars and share with your like-minded studentpreneurs. Catch next episode of Studentpreneur on Wednesday next week. Meanwhile, keep breaking the stereotype and the mindset.